From ancient native landmarks where it's claimed spirits older than man still roam after dark, to weathered forts stalked by the restless ghosts of those buried within long ago, are you sure you're ready to brave our picks for some of the most chillingly haunted places in Wyoming? Number 5. The Heart Mountain Relocation Center. The Heart Mountain Relocation Center, which is located between Cody and Powell in Park County, Wyoming, is one of 10 concentration camps that were utilized through World War II in the internment of Japanese Americans. Historically, following the December 7, 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor by Japanese forces, President FDR would issue Executive Order 9066, which authorized military commanders to create exclusion zones within which to detain Japanese, Italian, and German Americans. Construction of the Heart Mountain Relocation Center would begin through June of 1942, during which time a workforce would enclose 740 acres behind barbed wire fencing and would set to work on establishing residential, administrative, medical, and educational facilities within. The relocation center would receive its first inmates through August of 1942 and would remain active through December of 1944, with the last train carrying inmates departing the site on November 10th of 1945, after which Heart Mountain lands were sold off, namely to farmers and servicemen for the construction of homesteads. In 1996, the Heart Mountain Wyoming Foundation was established under the purpose of preserving and memorializing the significant landmark, while educating the public regarding Japanese American incarceration of the era. Currently, remnants of the hospital complex, a portion of a remodeled barracks, a Heart Mountain High School storage shed, root cellar, and Honor Roll World War II memorial are the only structures still standing for viewing. Not surprisingly, the whole of Relocation Center grounds are rumored to be roamed by the restless spirits of those who lost their lives on the inside, both metaphorically and literally, and while activity is said to remain nearly non-existent through daytime hours, at night, local legends tell the shadow people lurk about, stalking those living who get too near. Additionally, both guests and employees to Heart Mountain have reported a range of inexplicable happenings, including disembodied coughing or voices heard from empty spaces, phantom music detected on the air near the former barracks, and the feelings of being watched, of being followed, or of being brushed up against by someone or something unseen. While some local accounts detail negative encounters with shadow people across the property, other incredulous stories tell of run-ins with a mysterious guide or host who leads unsuspecting guests or groups around for a short time before disappearing mid-tour. Number 4. The Fort Bridger State Historic Site. The Fort Bridger State Historic Site, which is located on the Blacks Fork of the Green River in Uintah County, Wyoming, is a popular site preserving a historic fur trading outpost that was crucial in the resupplying of wagon trains on the Oregon, California, and Mormon trails. Historically, in 1843, the defense was established under none other than Jim Bridger, after which it took its name, and was composed of 2 double log houses of about 40 feet in length that were both joined by a horse corral. Over the years, as the fort's significance grew, so did its bounds, and in 1857, Mormons would set fire to the settlement during the Utah War in order to prevent its utilization by the U.S. Army. However, a year later, the Army would rebuild the defense and put it to use as a military outpost. Through the 1860s, the fort would host a Pony Express station. In 1878, the site would be left abandoned for a time, and in 1890, the Army would officially cease operations at Bridger following Wyoming's statehood. In 1928, the whole of the fort and its associated grounds were sold to the Historical Landmark Commission of Wyoming, and on June 25th of 1933, dedication ceremonies would establish Bridger as a Wyoming historical landmark and museum. In the present, the Fort Bridger State Historic Site remains open to the public, offering 27 historic structures, 4 replica structures, touring options, living history demonstrations, open archaeological excavations, exhibits, a cemetery, and more across its 37 acres. Chillingly, local legends paint this aged defense as haunted by the spirits of those tied to it in lives spent long ago, and those frequenting the expanse have reported extreme cold spots felt through summer, disembodied voices heard emanating from thin air, and abnormal battery death rates in electronics. Throughout a number of restored structures, both phantom lanterns and shadowy manifestations have been observed lurking about after dark, and in the museum, which was previously a barracks and milking barn, copy machines machines are said to act on their own accord, and staff have watched various objects move about inexplicably. The aforementioned on-site graveyard holds a number of names notable to our history, including that of Jim Bridger's own daughter, and as many tell it, harbors a range of restless souls resulting from those spirits unwilling to move on. Those who have braved the old burying grounds have reported encounters with the specter in full 1800s military garb, with the phantom of a dog named Thornburg, who earned the Medal of Honor after saving a child in life and that now guards the cemetery loyally, and with the presence of a man who was observed in frequency for a good while until his widow joined him in death, after which reports of encounters with his form ceased entirely. Number 3. The University of Wyoming. The University of Wyoming, which is located off of East University Avenue in Laramie, Wyoming, is a public land-grant research institution that, through its existence, has acted as the only four-year university in the whole of its state, all the while maintaining close connections to a number of the region's community colleges. Historically, on September 27th of 1886, Old Maine's cornerstone was laid in ceremony of its construction, and by 1887, the University of Wyoming would accept its first class of 42 men and women, after which, for the following decade, the building would be utilized to house classrooms, a library, and admin space. When the university was first established, Prexy's pasture was nothing more than what its namesake would suggest, a literal pasture covered in native grass on which the school's football team would practice and play upon until 1922, when Corbett Field was designed off the campus's southeastern border. Consecutively, over the years, Prexy's pasture would be altered a number of times, with its original design officialized in 1924 and its bounds landscaped in 1949 with blue spruce and muggo pine. Also in 1949, Old Main would see a complete remodel, with its auditorium and exterior stair removed and the expanse repurposed to house admin space, the president's office, and a boardroom utilized often in trustee meetings. The University of Wyoming remains open and active into the present, and is comprised of 7 different colleges which offer over 120 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs on campus, and another 41 degree, certificate, and endorsement programs through its outreach school, targeted at distance learners. Chillingly, the former Laramie Cemetery was held on grounds now occupied by Hoyt Hall, Ross Hall, and Knight Hall. Within this old burying grounds, both settlers and native parties were laid to rest. Sadly, over the years, a number of resulting bodies have been unearthed or disturbed, and it's widely speculated supernatural activity across college grounds is a result of restless spirits tied to said desecrated remains, with those braving the area reporting extreme cold spots, disembodied footsteps and voices, and encounters with ghoulish entities that most believe are the souls of those bodies displaced, forever searching for their rightful graves. Activity within Knight Hall is said to be the most extreme, and those who have frequented its bounds have told of strange wailing that permeates the second floor, of the constant feelings of being watched or being followed by something unseen, of encounters with the ghost of a young girl in traditional native attire, and of phantom drum beats and chants that emanate from the basement. Lastly, within the education building near the lab school, the entities of old-fashioned gentlemen in suits and top hats have been observed, walking about briefly before disappearing around corners or straight through solid surfaces. Number 2. The Bighorn Medicine Wheel. The Bighorn Medicine Wheel, which is located on the western peak of Medicine Mountain within the Bighorn National Forest around 25 miles to the east of Lovell, Wyoming, is a significant and sacred native complex turned archaeological site that was utilized by a range of tribes dating back to long before European contact ever occurred. Historically speaking, scientific evidence points to Medicine Mountain's use by tribes native to the region for over 7,000 years, with estimates on the Medicine Wheel's establishment ranging from a few hundred years to over 3,000 years in age. While no specific tribe has publicly claimed the feat of construction of the Bighorn Medicine Wheel, and while during negotiations to include the wheel as a National Historic Landmark and sacred site, the Crow actually stated the wheel existed before they'd ever entered the region, this hasn't stopped countless theories as to its origin. The Crow maintain that the wheel, which rests in their territory, was gifted to them along with the surrounding lands by the Creator, when Crow leader and visionary No Vitals, who ruled circa 1400 to 1600 CE, experienced a vision of stars descending into tobacco blossoms during a prayer fasting atop the highest mountain in the Bighorns, being Cloud Peak. Additionally, oral histories from several other tribes include the wheel as existing before they'd discovered or traveled through the area, and many claim it was built by ancient ancestors or the people without iron. In 1970, the Bighorn Medicine Wheel and its surrounding lands were declared a National Historic Landmark, and in 2011, following a massive expansion of the site, its name would be changed to the Medicine Mountain National Historic Landmark in order to include the newly added landscape along with the wheel. The Bighorn Medicine Wheel and its official site remain open to the public into the present, offering a mess of multi-use trails and countless jaw-dropping photo opportunities. On a side note, if you plan on visiting the wheel, be ready for site interpreters to temporarily suspend entry for periods up to an hour to accommodate for native ceremonies that are still held near. Over its known existence, the Bighorn Medicine Wheel has been surrounded in a wealth of legends and ghost stories. One Crow fable tells the wheel was created long ago by a man by the name of Burnt Face. It's said that when Burnt Face was younger, he fell into the fire, which resulted in unsightly scars across his head and in his unfortunate nickname. On a vision quest near the summit of Medicine Mountain, a mature Burnt Face set to work building his wheel. All the while, he valiantly defended a group of baby eagles from encroaching predators. It's told that as a reward for his efforts, when he was finished with his wheel, that the eagles descended upon him and carried him away, where his face was made smooth once again. Another popular tale tells that circa 1800, a Crow chief visited the wheel, where he spent 4 days without food or water, before he was visited by the spirits that dwell in the mountain, who presented him with a red eagle's feather and told him that the bird it came from would protect him on his path. This chief would don this feather in his headdress and would become known as Chief Red Plume. On his deathbed, many years later, Chief Red Plume would advise his people that anytime they needed him, that they could simply ascend the mountain to the wheel, where they would encounter his spirit. To this day, it's claimed that if one journeys to the wheel and follows the same ritual, fasting for 4 days, that they too will hear the voices of the spirits on the winds, sometimes joined by Chief Red Plume. Lastly, the Shoshone hold a belief that the wheel was fashioned by a colony of little people who roamed the region some 12,000 years ago, and chillingly, in 1932, what's believed to be the remains of one such little person was discovered mummified in the nearby San Pedro Mountains. Number 1. The Francis E. Warren Air Force Base. The Francis E. Warren Air Force Base, which is located around 3 miles to the west of Cheyenne, Wyoming, is a significant U.S. AFB acting as one of only 3 strategic missile bases in the whole of the United States. Historically speaking, Warren AFB, which was established in 1867 under the U.S. Army as Fort David Allen Russell, is the oldest continuously operated Air Force military installation around. From 1885 to 1930, more than 220 brick buildings were constructed within the fort, most of which impressively remain in use to this very day, and the last expansions to transpire on site would do so through the early 20th century, in the form of the addition of large barracks along Randall Avenue. In 1930, President Herbert Hoover would issue a proclamation re-establishing the defense as Fort Francis E. Warren in honor of Wyoming's territorial and first state governor, and in September of 1947, Fort Warren, along with a number of additional former Army facilities, was transferred to the newly established U.S. Air Force. In 1960, Francis E. Warren AFB would receive its first missiles, and while missile technologies have since seen countless advancements over the decades, the base continues to hold armaments at the ready should ever an adequate situation arise. Warren AFB remains in operation into the present, housing the 90th Missile Wing assigned to the 20th Air Force Global Strike Command, and is only accessible to military personnel, though visitors passes are obtainable from the Visitor Center. Pretty much from the time of its creation and onward, this fort-turned-AFB has been surrounded in an assortment of local legends and chilling stories of inexplicable encounters, ranging from reports of UFOs and odd anomalies spotted in the skies above, to run-ins with the full-bodied apparitions of former soldiers and cavalrymen below, and even to poltergeist-like pranks pulled on personnel. Building 34, which now houses the site's security headquarters, formerly acted as hospital space, and while otherworldly happenings have been experienced across its premises, the basement, which once acted as a morgue, is said to host the most active hauntings, with those braving the demons telling of extreme cold spots, of disembodied whispers heard emanating from thin air, and of sightings of shadowy manifestations. Building 223, which now houses the Wyoming Wing Civil Air Patrol, formerly acted as housing for medical staff, and it's told that long ago, a mental patient who escaped from the hospital snapped and killed 6 nurses within. Incidentally, run-ins with the manifestation of what appears to be a spectral nurse in old-fashioned garb are all but common here, with a number of encounters detailing her rushing from room to room as if checking on patients that have long since moved on. One more brutal Warren fable surrounds the family campground, or fam camp, where it's told that through the 1920s, a young woman was savagely assaulted and killed. As this story goes, ever since this fateful night, after dark, her spine-tingling wails can be heard throughout the area, and her bloodied apparition has been sighted floating eerily about, a look of vengeance on its face. One final popular Warren legend surrounds Quarters 80, otherwise recognized as the Gus Quarters or Gus's Quarters, where it's told that long ago, in the fort's early days, a young officer resided on site. As this tale tells it, this young officer was married to a beautiful wife. However, he was away on military maneuvers 90% of the time, and on one occasion, when he was sent home early, he arrived to find his wife in their upstairs bedroom in the arms of another soldier by the name of, you guessed it, Gus. With his only escape route being the stairs, and these stairs being blocked by an angry husband, poor Gus took the only path he saw fit for the occasion, and leapt from the 2-story window, accidentally hanging himself by the neck from a clothesline in the process, resulting in his untimely demise. From this date and onward, it's been told the restless spirit of Gus, not yet ready to move on from this world, remains, and has even become fond of moving objects around at random, rearranging furniture, or even stealing and hiding staff's personal effects. Taking its fascinating and lengthy history into account, and coupling it with such a formidable slew of associated legends and tales of supernatural encounters, we felt the Francis E Warren Air Force Base was the perfect selection as this list's most haunted place in Wyoming. Thanks for joining us for this list of picks for some of the most haunted places in Wyoming. If you enjoyed hearing our histories and ghost stories, subscribe to our channel, like this upload, and share us with anyone you feel could use a good scare. We'll catch you next time.